Ah, I am so giddy with excitement about this guitar. This is the latest Driftwood guitar to come off the workbench. It has been over a year in the making, and your eyes aren't deceiving you. It is a piece of the 3,000-year-old ancient Sitka that's on the top of this guitar. But let me tell you, I had high hopes for this guitar, and all throughout the build process, every time that I would tap on it, I would show it to Matt and be like, dude, this is gonna be a good one. This is gonna be a good one. And yesterday was string up day, finally, and not disappointed even a little bit. And I'm excited to show you guys what this guitar sounds like. Before we get into all the details about what makes this guitar tick, I want to tell you guys a little bit of the backstory about how I connected with the client in the very first place and how I ended up building this guitar for him. So we're coming out of COVID. This is probably early 2021, and a gentleman reached out to me. He'd seen us on YouTube and asked if I would be willing to build him a guitar. But his big thing was that he wanted a guitar that was really special and made just for him, and his big request was that we do something that uses really, really special woods, where we're not relying on pearl all over the guitar to grab somebody's attention, but instead we're relying on just really exquisite pieces of wood that make you go, I have to know more about that guitar. So right out of the gate, he reached out and said, I really want to use some of that ancient Sitka. And at the time, ancient Sitka was still available, and I was able to get just this absolutely killer piece that has all kinds of really bold streaking and everything inside of it, including a little bit of flaming there. And then as far as the back and sides, we were originally going to build this guitar out of Brazilian rosewood, but because he's in Hong Kong, I obviously expressed concern about shipping a guitar using Brazilian rosewood. In fact, we are not allowed to do that, so without CITES paperwork. So we actually backpedaled a little bit, and we ended up landing on some incredible Ziricote, which is just one of my top 3 favorite woods. And we spent probably 2 months digging around on the internet until I found a piece of Ziricote that I felt like really checked the box. And this set is just absolutely killer. It's got that classic like spider webbing that you see in some really nice Brazilian rosewood, as well as the landscaping that is always seen in the best sets of Ziricote. And then on the sides of the guitar, we're actually able to capture some of the sapwood to really get that to pop. One of the reasons I mentioned that light streak of sapwood on the side of the guitars is because it's the only light colored wood on this entire instrument. That is to say that the client actually chose binding for this guitar that almost is the exact same color as the back and sides. And when he first mentioned that he wanted to do that, I was very taken aback by it, because something that I always recommend to my customers is that we use a contrasting color wood for our bindings, so that we end up framing out the shape of the guitar. From a distance, you get that really nice crisp line of the outline of the guitar. And I wasn't sure that I would like not having that. But upon bending the binding and kind of starting to install it, what struck me was how like simple and elegant and beautiful it was. It was classic, like a black tuxedo in a way that just looked crisp, but without being like a punch in the face. And what happens is, I think that by not having pearl and not having that maple binding, it draws your eye to the figure of the wood instead of the guitar as a whole. And what I'm hoping is that moving forward, a lot of my clients will see this guitar and go, yeah, let's do that, because let me tell you, I'm absolutely in love with the look of the whole thing. And if you would have asked me when I first started this guitar if I was going to be into it, I would have been like, no, I don't think I'm going to like this one. But as you can see, it's just stunning and simple. Okay, so moving up to the headstock, let's talk about some of the unique features about this guitar. What you'll notice is that the headstock is a little bit different than most of the headstocks that I've done so far. The last video that we put out showing off one of my guitars that had a very similar headstock, but this is the Genesis guitar. This is the one where the client asked if I could do something a little bit different, and I ended up landing on this, and I really like it. It's kind of a variation on my archtop guitar design, where we just add a little bit of curvature to it and make it look elegant. It's not so squared off as my normal design. And I like it so much that I think I will be offering it as an option for everybody moving forward. We have the 21:1 gear ratio Waverly tuning machines on here. My first time using the higher ratio tuning machines, and I really, really love them. Got them in gold, and they're rock solid, and because of that higher gear ratio, you have a lot more accuracy on the just the feel and the tuning of the guitar. Moving down the fingerboard of this guitar, you'll see that the fretboard itself is made out of Macassar ebony, carrying on that theme of letting the woods do all of the talking instead of just using a piece of black ebony, which is what a lot of people use. I prefer Macassar ebony because you get those beautiful streaks of like a dark chocolate, milk chocolate, sometimes even almost like purples and greens inside of it. And it matches all of the binding that I just mentioned, which is also Macassar ebony, as well as the rosette on the guitar. So the dark pieces of wood that are on the guitar have some figure and some grain to catch your eye and to look at. In fact, you can kind of just look over this guitar for hours and always find something new and interesting to look at. And that's part of the reason why I love it so much. Especially on the rosette here, you'll notice that it's dark on one side and then fades to a light color blonde on the other side. And it's just like, you know, nature's doing a sunburst on the wood for me, and it's just, I absolutely love it. The last piece of Macassar ebony that we have on this guitar is on the end graft that wraps around the back of it. I just think, once again, it's just so nice and subtle. Instead of being bound in maple or in abalone, that little piece of Macassar ebony that's on there just is just a nice little reminder of like simple is more. Moving to the back of the neck, I wanted to show you guys how this piece of wood came out and looks. This is a piece of flamed mahogany, quarter sawn, and it's got this incredibly uniform figure that's inside of it. But in order to tie it into the body of this guitar, I recommended that we did a really mild burst on it. Kind of like the way that a violin neck is really kind of worn out in the middle. I just really like that look. And so we put a little bit of brown stain inside the wood so that we would get this really nice bursted look. And I think that it ties in aesthetically a lot better with the back and sides of this guitar. Now that we've talked about a lot of the major aspects of this guitar, the elephant in the room is this giant inlay that goes down the fretboard. So I do want to tell you guys a little bit about how we landed on this inlay, how we went about making it, and kind of the process that went into it. The client told me right out of the gate, I'm going to want to do an Eric Clapton inlay on this guitar. He'd really liked my Bob Dylan and my Johnny Cash and all of those other faces that I had done on the guitars, and I was really fortunate and lucky that he said, this is who I want, and these are the lyrics that I want on the guitar. The lyrics that are on this guitar are from a song called Lonely Stranger, and he had mentioned to me that he'd been a Clapton fan forever, basically since he started learning how to play. Really loved his way of playing, where he switches from major to minor feels all the time, and was saying that like he kind of cut his teeth learning how to do solo work by playing a lot of Eric Clapton songs, and just really loved the way that this lyric kind of represented something personal to him. As far as Clapton's face is concerned, everything that you see on here was absolutely cut by hand with a little jeweler's saw and put together. It did require many revisions, which is part of the process of me working with my clients. I make the inlay, and then we constantly are kind of trimming the sails so that we can get it exactly how the client envisions it, as well as kind of what's going to work on the guitar. And in the end, as long as it took me to make this inlay, which I'd say was probably about 3 months of kind of just back and forth, just messing with it, working on it, I'm really, really happy with how it looks. As bold of an inlay as it is, I think when you see this guitar, it's not necessarily the very first and only thing that you see. And that's always a really big goal of mine. I want you to see the guitar as a whole and then go, wow, check out that inlay. And I think that this somehow managed to do it. And that is the only pearl that is on this guitar, is all of the lyrics that go down the fretboard. Those are all mother of pearl. But Clapton's face itself is actually all made out of different pieces of wood, mostly maples. There's some rosewoods and some ebonies and other species inside of there, but it looks really, really cool. A lot of the times clients want to have a lot of bold inlays on the front, but sometimes they actually ask for inlays on the back of the guitar as well. And the client here asked if we just do a simple monstera on the back of this guitar. For him, it represented his children and how they go to Hawaii all the time to vacation. He's told me that he had his kids during COVID, and the monstera plant just really reminds him of being in Hawaii, and it reminds him of his kids laughing and just having a good time. So as he gets this guitar and he plays it and enjoys it, every time he picks it up, he'll be reminded of kind of what motivates him to want to play guitar, as well as his children and his passions in life. And I think that that's a really cool way of making this guitar something that's really special and just for him, but not just covered in inlays. All right, now that we've gone over all of the details about this guitar, now for the exciting part, and that is to show you guys what it sounds like. As always, we are using a Zoom H6 with an XY pattern microphone, about a foot and a half away from the sound hole. We're not doing any post-processing, no EQ, no reverb, no compression, no nothing. What you guys hear on that side of the camera is exactly, hopefully, as close as we can to how it actually sounds in real life. Remember that for your best mileage is to use a nice quality set of headphones or some good speakers. With that, what I'm going to do, as I always do with all of our guitars, I'm just going to run through the major chords so that you guys can get a sense of what it sounds like. But before I do that, I do just want to mention how absolutely ecstatic I am about this guitar. As a guitar builder, you're always chasing after like this tone, and sound is not something you can describe, but you just know in your head, like, man, I'll know it when I hear it. And this guitar is doing that for me. When I strung it up for the first time yesterday, I just was like, yeah, that's the high watermark for me now. Remember, this guitar's only had strings on it for about 18 hours, so it's brand spanking new, but I think you guys will hear via the microphone here kind of just like how perfectly rounded the sound is on this guitar. So with that, let me run through some chords. Even that's got me excited. I was just talking to Matt about this when he came in this morning. I was like, dude, it's got this like really beautiful like low mid range that's really hard to get out of a guitar, I find most of the time, without pulling all the bottom end out of the guitar. So what you end up with is like this kind of range on the tonal footprint of this guitar it cuts through really nicely, but you also get that really beautiful rounded bottom end and all the shimmer from that high E string. So what I'll do now is just play some songs, and they're the songs that I play on all of the guitars on our channel, and I do that for a reason so that you guys can go back and listen to it and compare it to other guitars. So I'm gonna say it, I think this is my best sounding guitar by a long shot. I'm just in love with it, and I don't want to ship it to the customer at this point. And but I challenge you to do is to go back and listen to some of the other guitars that I've built, as well as some of the guitars that we've reviewed on this channel, and let me know what you think and how it kind of fits in that lineup. So with that, we'll kind of stick with the hits here. He's got such good sustain. Oh. But yeah, just there's something about it. And obviously, when you're the one playing the guitar, you can feel it giving you the feedback that you want. But there's a delicateness to this guitar that even just the lightest little touch kind of wakes it up in a way that typically I'm used to having to really strum on the strings a lot harder to get it to do what it's doing now. But yeah, just I was messing around with this you know, a Crash Into Me, and obviously it's just kind of a droning E major kind of a feel, but it's and I feel like a little riff like that kind of is a really good job of showing off. Even though those chords kind of can be really muddy and just sound like one homogeneous chord, you feel like you're still hearing all 6 individual strings inside of it. And I just like could not be more excited. Like I said, this guitar is only about 18 hours old as far as having string tension on it. And I am just so excited to see what this guitar sounds like in a year or 2 years, 3 years. It's just going to get better and better and better. Yeah, it's the new high watermark for me. I'm always striving to get the sound to be even better and better, and it's nice when you move the ball down the field and you feel like you're actually getting better at something. And I just really excited for the customer to take delivery of this guitar and to cherish it and to have a lifetime with it. And let me know what you guys think. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think that it sounded like? And go back and check out some of our older videos so that you can compare how this guitar sounds to some of my older guitars. And we'll see y'all in the next one.